Hello class, and welcome to the video on lab report number 1. This is day 1 of class, and we're jumping right into the first lab report. The personal health lab is designed to help you become proficient in using the scientific method. So you are going to be doing 4 lab reports. This is the first one. Being able to have a topical area where you set a hypothesis, and then you're going to move through the scientific method in order to test a hypothesis. So that's basically what we do in the scientific method. Is we're setting a hypothesis based on a sample of people and data that's collected, and then based on the analysis of the data, we test the hypothesis to see if we would accept our hypothesis or reject our hypothesis. So this first lab activity is going to be on the first report is on lab activity 1-2, which is on the 8 dimensions of wellness. And by this time you should have read the first chapter in the book and reviewed the PowerPoint and done your notes. So you're very well aware of the 8 dimensions of wellness. You're going to fill out the lab activity, and then you're going to be moving through the rubric on doing the scientific method. So
at the end of lab activity 1-2, you will be assigning a score and assessing the information that was provided on the survey. So as a result, you will get an excellent strength in the dimension, a room for improvement in the dimension, or that the dimension needs a lot of work. So keep that in mind, because that will be included as part of your lab report.
So now we're going to move and look at the rubric for the lab report.
All right, so lab report 1, like we mentioned, is about the 8 dimensions of wellness. The first area is your introduction. This is where you're going to give background on wellness. A brunt of this can come from your book in chapter 1, and then we need you to find one other professional reference that gives you some information on the 8 dimensions. Included in your introduction, you'll be defining wellness and how it's connected to the 8 dimensions, and identifying what each of those dimensions are and how they relate to health and well-being. At the end of your introduction, you're going to include a purpose statement. What is the purpose of this lab report? The purpose of this lab report is to identify the 8 dimensions in college students and identify strengths and weaknesses. So that would be a very simple purpose statement that you could include for this lab report.
Then you're going to be moving on to set hypothesis statements. In this lab report, we're going to ask you to set 2 hypothesis statements. You're going to be making a hypothesis based on college students, because the data you're going to receive is going to be data that comes from a group of college students. And you're going to set a hypothesis on which dimension you feel or you believe, based on your knowledge of college students, that the students would score the highest in, that they would have excellence in, and then which dimension do you feel like the students would have needs improvement. So you'll have 2 hypothesis statements. So it might be something similar to college students will score excellent in the physical dimension, or college students will score in the needs improvement area in the environmental dimension. So that would be based on your background or your knowledge of college students or research that's been done. You would set a hypothesis as to how you feel like this group of college students at CSU Pueblo are going to score.
Excellent. Moving on to the methods. The methods area is a step-by-step depiction of how you collected the data for this lab report. So walking people through where the lab activity came from, what the format of the lab activity is, how the lab activity was scored, and a description of your subject. So very, very specifically describing step by step. Your assumption is that the reader knows nothing about how this experiment was performed, and by reading your lab report, they should be able to copy and recreate this exact same experiment without you being able to tell them anything. So that's what your methods section includes.
And then the next section is the results section. And this is where you are just going to state the findings of your results, your analysis of the data. You will be receiving an Excel file that has a whole class data set of this lab 1-2. And so what you're going to be doing is finding averages. So you'll have the 8 dimensions, and you're going to find the average of each dimension for that class set. That's a pretty simple process in Excel. If you're not familiar with how to find averages in Excel, there are many YouTube videos that will help you with that. It's just using the function tool on Excel to be able to find the averages. And then you will be developing a table or a chart or a graph to show the results that you found. We've also posted a short YouTube video on how to use Excel to develop a chart or a graph that you could include in your report.
Excellent. Then the next area are your conclusions that you will be drawing as a result of your experiment. So there are specific questions that are asked in that section. You're going to be looking at if your methods were reliable and your results are valid. The terms worksheet that you're going to be working on day 1 also will help you understand what reliability and validity mean. And the next question, would you be able to repeat this experiment and get the same results? Why or why not? Did your experiment answer your question, or was your hypothesis accepted or rejected? Was it correct or was it incorrect? And then what are some of the reasons for the results of your experiment, whether you accepted your hypothesis or you rejected it? And the final area of your lab report is the only area where you are giving your opinion about this experiment. And so this is your reflection area or your comments area. So based off of your data, your personal data from lab activity 1-2, we want you to just pick your 2 favorite, if you will, dimensions to comment on, and whether you were strong or you need improvement in those areas, and how this new awareness of the 8 dimensions has affected your viewpoint on these dimensions. And to close out your paper, you'll be graded on your format. How well is it written? Did you spell things correctly? Did you use correct punctuation, grammar? Did you include 2 citations or references with your paper? And is it easy to read? So those will be the areas that you'll be given a format score on. This entire lab report will be worth 50 points. And you will have a peer review of this paper as well. So you'll be turning in a draft of your lab report to the designated discussion area by 6 p.m. on the due date, which is day 3 on May 16th. By 6 p.m. you'll be turning in a rough draft. And then by 11 p.m., you'll need to have commented on 2 other students' lab reports to take a look at it, see if it makes sense to you, see if their hypothesis is measurable, see if their results follow their hypothesis in reporting, and just see if they have any grammatical errors or anything like that. We'd like you to do some peer response to at least 2 other lab reports.
And then if you have any questions, make sure that you go on the question discussion and ask those questions. Help each other out. This first lab report, we're really just trying to work together so people can understand the format, they can understand the process. We will also be posting a well-done lab report example so you can see what one would look like.
Thanks, guys. Good
Thanks.
luck.